trending it. For example, Shekhar Kapur, or many films starting from, I would say, the 50s. So you have audiences for Indian cinema in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Africa, in Russia, in the Far East. This is something that producers, we have been unaware of largely. Like Kishorullah have been aware of this, who was the big distributor for films outside India. We've been unaware. I mean, when I went to Morocco for the first time, this was in 2002 or 2003, I was the guy getting mobbed, not Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah,
no one knew who he was.
I was filming in Morocco, and everybody found Shekhar Kapur from Bollywood is filming a film, and everybody left the Star Wars set. All the Moroccans came rushing to think I might be shooting with Aamir or Shah Rukh. They were very disappointed. I was shooting with Heath Ledger.
So I think what Indian cinema has done, I mean, over the years, is without really intending to, without having a plan in mind, or without having it in mind, I think somehow organically it has managed to touch a chord with audiences in certain parts of the globe. And that's great. I think that's wonderful. But I think for us to actually ever reach a stage where we want to seriously entertain a world audience, then we'll have to look at the world audience seriously. And I think we haven't even begun doing that. In my opinion, not even begun doing that.
Do you think we should? Because what you said is that it's a great thing that we satisfy an audience. It's a little incestuous. Really.
No, I don't think. I think it's great. I think it's great to have such a big and huge, healthy audience to entertain. I think that's, personally, as an entertainer, I'm really satisfied with that. Emotionally, I connect with the audience that I have been entertaining over the last 20 years now. And I enjoy connecting with them and entertaining them. So there isn't really an urge in me to try and entertain a world audience, which is not to say that I would not like to. I'm not totally against it. And I think that it is only when a filmmaker from India really decides that, okay, or a bunch of filmmakers from India decide that, okay, now we want to look at the international audience. It's like food, you want people all over the world to have Indian food. So you figure out a way to cater to them. But you have to first look at them. Okay. You have to look at who you're trying to satisfy. You have to look at who your audience is. We have the right cooks. We have to, if we want to entertain a world audience, we want to break that barrier and go into a world market, then we have to want to do that. I think that is the first step. We have to decide to do that. And with that intention, I'm sure we can crack that. I don't think that's a big deal.
When I go to Ashok, you said something very interesting. Do we have the right cooks?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to address a couple of the things you started out by saying, which is, over the last 27 years that I've been making films, I've seen different kinds of technology, whether it's originally in the early 80s, there was the VHS and the Betamax when we started video, and we know what happened in that battle, and Sony got smart and figured out how to get control over the content, and now they have the Blu-ray, which beat the HD DVD format. Then came cable, and you had satellite. In each case, box office pundits pretty much said that, the box office was, it was doom and gloom for the box office. Well, in each case, the box office grew, and in each case, new revenue streams are created. I agree with Shekhar in that I think new media and the cell phones or video on demand are going to increase the market enormously. It's also going to make things very democratic. It's going to make it easier for content makers to have their talent seen across the world. For people like myself sitting in Los Angeles, I and my executives are able to see little movies that filmmakers make around the world, and they put them up on YouTube or they put them up on the net, and we're able to see the talent of people, and we're able to choose from Asia and China and, and India and everywhere else. As regards, India, I think there's an extraordinary amount of talent in front of and behind the camera. I think, the younger filmmakers have started to make more diverse and different films. The distribution is a little bit of a dichotomy in that while the foreign market grows, I think the methods of distribution are old-fashioned and in many cases archaic.
Sorry, the methods of Indian films or films in general?
Films. No, Indian films being distributed abroad. I think if you look at the American distribution of Indian films, you look at it being distributed on 100 screens in primarily outer-lying theaters
Yep.
for the NRI community.
Can you
And
put it in
let me
context?
just say that it isn't given the shot that
Yeah.
it should be given. If it is given a shot, you don't know what could happen, but it is not given that shot.
Okay, you run one of the biggest and most successful foreign sales company, and you're a big user, so you're constantly looking at this. Ashok, let's put it in context for everybody. Let's say films from India, what's the maximum business that you think overseas that a film from India has done?
Right now, I mean, it's negligible. I mean, it's in the overall scheme of things. I mean, depends on what you compare it to. If you compare it to what Indian films did 10 years ago,
No.
there's been
I'm
incredible
going to
growth.
compare it to
If you want to
Chinese films.
compare it to, am I going to pick up an Indian film for foreign distribution or an American film for foreign distribution? There's no comparison.
So let's just put it into context. Let's compare. I know that, like, given all the revenue streams from a film like Hero or Crouching Tiger, they would have touched about $300 million, right?
Yes.
Or more, given everything. $300 million from a Chinese film in the Chinese language, what, 12 years ago? And then another Hero, which has done $100 million in Asia,
Right.
$200 million in America, has $300 million, then the DVD and everything gives us almost a $500 million revenue streams. $500 million from one Chinese film in Chinese. What's the maximum we've got from an Indian film?
I don't know numbers. I mean, you guys probably
Would
know
I
the
say
numbers
25
better,
million?
but it's, I think, probably somewhere there.
All over the world, yeah, not more than that.
Not more than 25. That includes Indian box office.
Well, even if you go into some really big success, if you look at the rest of the world, I mean, including the Middle East, where Indians do quite a lot of business, South Africa, I mean, all the world except India, or even if you do include India.
Yeah. So, the gap.
Yeah.
Why is it that China's managed to do it and we haven't?
Well, I think you have a basic difference. Chinese films, the basis is martial arts. Martial arts is more accessible to a Western audience. I think in Indian films, you have brilliant photography, colors, and you have songs and dances, which are slightly more inaccessible to a guy sitting in Iowa or Idaho to watch.
Well,
So,
well-
there is a little bit of a problem there. However, I will also get to the point that what Aamir said, you have a very vibrant home market, and many times when you have to please your core audience, it is fairly difficult in this particular case also please both. Now, I would say, not because he's here, but and I don't watch a lot of the films, but the one that I did like and I thought made an extraordinary effort was Lagan, and I thought it had an idea that obviously pleased the core audience, but also had that spark where, you know, it was innovative, it was entrepreneurial, and was very interesting for a Western audience. Very badly distributed outside of India, but sorry. But
But it was-
I completely agree.
but that's-
I completely agree.
But
I wasn't a distributor.
So, would you buy a Lagan, Ashok?
Huh?
Would you buy a Lagan?
Yes.
And if you cut it down from 3 hours, 20 minutes to 2 hours, then you would buy it?
I
Or
don't
would you
know.
ask
I
him
don't
to
know.
do that?
That I would have to watch it about
Okay.
5 more times.
All
But,
right.
Yeah.
So, quick question. Let's then wrap this up. Both to you, Ashok and Aamir, is this huge gap. Should we do it? Should we try and make a film in India that does $300 million worldwide? Do you think that because of all the hype that India is getting, it is part of us to also use that hype and go out and create influence? Do you believe that films influence?
You know, I think this has to happen organically. I don't know whether we can plan to do it and decide to do it. I think each individual filmmaker needs to decide for himself or herself what audience they want to address. I think Indian filmmakers, people here have the ability to entertain a world audience. They have to just decide that they want to entertain a world audience, and they can do that. It's something that should happen organically, I really believe. I don't know whether we should decide about it and, you know, make some plan of action or something. I think it should happen organically, and I also